Hello, I'm Rich Herring. I never listen to Nerdology because I am way too cool. But carry on listening, nerds.
Hi, this is Mark, and welcome to this Christmas edition of Nerdology.
I know, it's so festive, isn't it? It's so festive.
That's Peter, by the way. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Mark. I'm back from the other week. You might remember me. If I'd known I was going to come back, we should have done a cliffhanger ending last time to get people listening to this one.
Yeah.
We should have had a
We've
really
had you
exciting...
hanging from an umbrella off the side of a cliff.
And the sound of a claw coming towards me.
Yeah.
We could have done that, couldn't we?
We could have done that.
We could have done that, but we didn't.
What could be more Christmassy than that?
It might have a bauble on the end of it.
Maybe.
Maybe. The claw, that is. Right. So, Christmas. Yeah, when Mark said to me he was going to do a Christmas special, he asked me, and I was like, really? Christmas? I'm not particularly Christmassy as a person. Yeah, I'm good-humoured, I like to think. I have a good perception of the world, but Christmas, when he asked me, that really made me think, what on earth can I say about Christmas? I don't really... But then I got to thinking why I don't. And that's why I'm here, to destroy Christmas for you, dear listener.
Bar humbug.
Bar humbug indeed. But with reason, and with good reason, I like to think. Because Doctor Who now, it's gone all Christmassy. Once a year now we get Christmas episodes, which we never used to have. As a fanboy, as a nerd, we could ignore, couldn't we? We could ignore Christmas. It was something that other people did. But now Doctor Who has to have a Christmas episode, and now we have to start acknowledging the fact that there is Christmas television that's a little bit twee, a little bit nice. We can't just have gothic gloom all the time. It's got to be something a bit frumpy and frivolous.
You pardon me for saying this. You're coming across a bit grinchy.
Am I?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit, yeah.
It's the green paint on the face.
Well, there is
isn't
that.
There is
yeah.
that. I shouldn't go the whole hog. But no, this is the thing. I do like Christmas to a point. And what I hope to talk about to you, to the listener, to the world, is about I'm an easygoing man, but I'm not a Christmas Nazi. I like elements of Christmas, but
What
I don't
exactly
like...
is a Christmas Nazi? Is it like a stormtrooper?
You will enjoy Christmas, and you will wear that tinsel, you prick. That's a Christmas Nazi.
Okay.
Possibly.
I'm glad we're clear on that.
Yeah, the thing about Christmas, right, is that Christmas is about motifs. It's about certain things, isn't it? It's about that. For me, there's two sides of Christmas. There's the niceness. There's the being in the snug with your fire, your log fire.
Yeah, we've got the log fire going in the background.
We have, haven't we?
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't
If you
it?
squint, you can just make it out. He hasn't got one really. So yes, it's for me. There are two sides to Christmas. There's the nice people being nice to each other in the warm. Having time off work, being with family, that's nice. I like that.
Not if you work in retail.
Not if you work in retail, but I'm not talking about you, Mark. I'm talking about the hypothetical person who isn't you.
There is a chance that there's someone listening who does work in retail, so
Yeah, that's fair enough. But what I'm talking about is that there is that side which is great.
Yes.
But then there's this other side which is full of things that we're over familiar with. I think it's to do with the Santa Claus, the bauble, the Christmas tree, the decorations, the Christmas lights, the snow, the robins, the scarf.
I
the
love
snowman.
a nice robin.
I bet you do.
Yeah.
I bet you do. Stop throwing me off my spiel. But yeah, there's two sides to Christmas, and it's a bit like anything. There's a very commercialised, very sort of over-familiar. You see it in adverts all the time. Everyone talks about the Christmas cards. And the older you get, I think the more desensitised you get to it. When I was a kid, maybe seeing a robin might go, oh, it's a bit Christmassy. As an adult, I'm now thinking, oh, it's a bit Christmassy.
Does it probably not help that we start getting TV ads in sort of October for Christmas?
Yeah, although that doesn't annoy me so much as I don't know. It's just the way it's done, and this is why Doctor Who specials. He says dragging Doctor Who back into this. The problem I have with the Doctor Who Christmas specials is that they rely a lot on the familiarities, the cliches of Christmas. So you get the snow, you get the Dickensian stuff, which has happened in the last few years.
Yeah.
You get the Christmas trees, you get the snowmen, you get the Father Christmases, you get the carol singing, you get all that tweeness, which for me is just a little bit been there, done that. I've seen Home Alone. I've seen a lot of these films, and Doctor Who is trying to do that now. So we're forced to accept, as I said before, that Christmas has these motifs and ways of doing things, and I just find them too distracting, because it's a bit like, you know, when people talk about the sort of Robert Holmes shopping list for Two Doctors.
Right.
He says, dragging the Christmassy Two Doctors into the conversation.
Yeah. Nothing says Christmas more to me than
Sontarans in Spain.
In Spain, yes, exactly.
But yeah, it's a bit like that. Although I think it's a bit of a myth to sort of say that the shopping list is a bad idea, because all stories have a shopping list. It wasn't just Two Doctors. I mean, every sort of production meeting, they all have a list of things they want to achieve with a certain story.
Yeah.
So the shopping list isn't just a Two Doctors thing. I think Two Doctors could have been well written with the Sontarans in Spain and you know, Patrick Troughton. That I would have loved a shopping list like that. If someone came up to me and said, write a story to do with these elements,
yeah,
I would have gone, great, thank you, and I would have run off like a little boy and written it. So I don't think that's a problem in itself. But with the Christmas ones, there is a shopping list which they have to do every year, which they have to have snow, they have to have all the motifs, they have to have a feel-good factor as well.
So you're saying it's getting a bit predictable?
To be honest, yes, that's what it does. It's a bit like the unit cliche of you've got to have Benton and Yates and all these kind of things. So people, over time, they become so familiar that they become a little bit, you know, do something different, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think Christmas is like that. And I think, and also as well, it's the idea that at Christmas time, everybody wants Christmas everywhere. The fact is, when I was growing up, and we got the Christmas TV listings magazines, where back in the day you got the Radio Times and you got the TV Times, so you can see what was on ITV.
Those
because we never watched ITV because we were a BBC family.
Exactly, we were pretty much the same.
Exactly, but you look through these listings magazines predominantly for the films, like Star Wars and Indiana Jones and all these other films, and they're not very Christmassy at all as films.
No. Well, that's another thing. There's things like there seems to be a proliferation of war films on at Christmas. You get stuff like The Great Escape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
great films.
Great films.
Not particularly Christmassy.
Not particularly Christmassy, but it's nice to have things that aren't Christmassy when all around you is Christmassy.
Yeah.
When you've got
it's
when you've got decorations in your home, when you've got decorations everywhere, and everyone's already nice, and they're talking about Christmas dinner, and the smell of sprouts is filling your face. Sprouts. Thanks for those, Mark, by the way. Last little bowl of sprouts. Not really. I'm just lying. If that's so Christmassy, you wouldn't believe.
We are actually recording this in November. So.
Yeah, and he's got a packet of Bourbons, and that's Christmas here,
yeah.
I think him and his missus are going to have a very low-key Christmas. That's fine. That's fine. But yeah, I think with Christmas television, I don't necessarily want Christmas all the time, especially in things like drama and films. I don't really expect there to be sort of just purely Christmas films, you know, and it's nice to have things like Indiana Jones of an evening, you know, when they used to do their premieres on BBC One, you used to get your big blockbusters. They weren't Christmassy films.
No.
And I think the problem with Doctor Who on Christmas is that not only do they have to sort of feature all the sort of cliches of Christmas, but they have to then aim it at a kind of feel-good market. So then you get a sort of story which has a certain niceness about it. It's watered down. It's perhaps not as gritty or as... I mean, one of the arguments for having this sort of Christmas special is that, well, on Christmas Day, everyone's bloated with roast dinner. No one wants to watch anything where you have to use your brain, you know. And for me, that's a bit like aiming things for kids. It's like, I want something that I can enjoy, not just outside of one time of the year. For a hypothetical situation where people are so bloated they can't pay attention to what they're watching on television.
I mean, if you look at the more recent Christmas specials, I quite liked the Dickens adaptation that they did. I thought that was pretty good. But then again, you're working with a pretty decent source material and you're just kind of giving it a bit of a sci-fi twist.
Exactly. Doctor Who's always done that. I mean, to be fair, like Brain of Morbius being the Frankenstein thing.
Yeah.
So to do a Dickens is fair enough. But I think the next year, then they do the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe parody.
That was bad.
That was bad. It was overlong. And part of the reason why it didn't work is because we're too familiar with the source material. Because it's such an obvious thing to do. I mean, with the Frankenstein thing, the Brain of Morbius was different enough, I think. And it was involved... There were other things to watch in it, really. Whereas I think with the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe thing, which
Yeah.
had an awful title. What was it?
It was.
What was it?
The widow, the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah, it's a bit clunky. It's a bit. It's too desperately now trying to say,
Yeah.
"Look at me, this is Christmas."
Yeah.
You know, we're going to do a Christmas one, and it's going to be a bit like other things you've seen at Christmas.
And it was all a bit of nothing, really, wasn't it? At the end of it.
Yeah, and the emotional punch. I thought, to be fair, I did sort of have an emotional response to that. But in the run-up to that emotional response, it was going through the numbers, painting by numbers. It was
Yeah.
having kids walk through a magical thing, a Narnia thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the episode time was taken up with trying to convey that sense of wow.
Yeah.
But because we've seen this sort of thing
There's
before,
some nice visual touches. And...
yeah, the big tree men. I mean, when it got into that side of thing, I think it improved. But
Yeah.
up until then, you have got the sort of kids walking around a woodland, and it's all a bit. We know what it's trying to do here.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get as involved because I knew that it was trading off things other things have done better. And I think when you use source material for whatever you do, whether it's a Christmas thing or Frankenstein, or if Doctor Who wanted to do, I don't know, a Vicar of Dibley special parody thing, whatever it tries to do, it's got to sort of take it, but just do something a bit special with it, a bit good. It's got to surprise you, and unfortunately, the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe thing didn't really have enough there to make me go, this is Doctor Who doing its own unique twist on it, because it was already in Doctor Who territory with the idea of the wardrobe with the sort of other world behind it. So for me, the Christmas special, it's almost like it's kind of plays down. It sort of speaks down to you as if to say, this is, we're not going to make you think. Perhaps we're going to trade off these obvious things. We're not going to try too hard because hey, you might not be able to think on Christmas Day because you'll be a zombie filled up with food. And I find that a bit patronising. I find that a bit, I'd like something that I could watch 6 months later and think, actually, that's a good story in its own right.
Yeah, it stands up in its own right.
Yeah, and that's why of all the Christmas specials that Doctor Who have done, we've done quite a few now, haven't we?
Yeah.
The only two that I really sort of liked were the Christmas Invasion, which I liked because as a sort of Invasion of Earth story, before they became every other episode, I thought that was really well handled. I liked the Suky Khakh and the way that they were done. It felt really profound and good, and it was just, that was good. But my favourite was the Next Doctor.
Yeah.
Because I love the David Morrissey thing. I love the idea of, is this man a Time Lord? I love the Cybermen being in it. But it had the Christmas motifs without it being twee, and it wasn't Christmassy. It wasn't like everybody at the end coming together as a family. Like, it wasn't trying to be a bit twee, a bit sort of gay in the old-fashioned sense of the word, a bit sort of happy slappy.
Yeah.
And I like the Next Doctor. But all the other ones seem to be a bit more moronic, and I use that term with absolute moronic. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say moronic.
You have
with
3 times
on.
now.
3 times. But yeah, when I think of The Runaway Bride, I just think there were elements of that were so sort of basic and so sort of uninvolving, and we've been there before with it, that apart from the chase sequence of the TARDIS on the motorway, which hadn't been done before, everything else really kind of had been, and it was playing down. It wasn't really doing anything. It was just a bit sort of, as I say, by numbers.
I remember not really taking to Donna in that story, and there was quite a hullabaloo when she was announced as the new companion not that much after that. But I wanted to give her a fair crack at the whip, and to be fair, I think
Naughty
she
man.
is... she, in my book, is probably the best modern series companion since it's come back.
I've got to say, my opinion of Catherine Tate being in it, at the time I was a bit sort of mixed feelings, because I think she is genuinely funny, and it's nice to see a more mature actress rather than a tomboy, kind of. It was nice to see someone, she is genuinely a great person, I think. But actually, on reflection, I think that this is something I hadn't actually thought about until we just talked about it in the last 10 seconds. So, bit of an exclusive here, folks. Actually, the reason why I had misgivings about Catherine Tate, with hindsight, was that because the tone of the series can almost be like a comedy with bits of drama, I was worried that it would then become a lot more jokey.
Yeah.
Because Doctor Who isn't really, the new series does have a tone about it, which isn't like the old series. It's a lot more high-spirited, it's a lot more goofy, it's a lot more for the kids, if you like, again, aiming down a bit in a patronising way that the new series, I think, can do. You can quote me on that. But yeah, I was worried that the Catherine Tate thing might make it more of a comedy,
Yeah.
that I would have liked. Really, for me, it should be a drama first with comedy moments in it, rather than something where it's a
Yeah.
bit light-hearted with bits of drama thrown in just to appease the people who.
Quite
want
often
drama.
you can get someone who's known as a comic actor or a comedian, and if they get the chance to do something like this, it is their opportunity to go against type, and they do tend to want to play it more straight. I mean, John Pertwee is a classic example of that. Yeah.
If you watch something like The Demons, where he does that bit where he goes into the pub and has that scene where he just tells everyone to shut up,
Yeah.
and he's like some complete giant arse. You've got to say, when you listen to the Navy Lark, it's a completely different. When he's doing his funny voices, it's just and I think it's great to. But I was worried with when Catherine Tate was announced. I thought, what with the fact that things like the tone, especially of series 2, where it was a little bit more confident, a little bit more cocksure, if I think is the word. I was worried that Catherine Tate would have that, what's her catchphrase? Am I bothered? It would have that sort of look at me, head jerk, and all that kind of thing. But actually, I think it wasn't actually against her. It was about I had misgivings about the rest of the show, and because for me, I think when you introduce things, you are worried it might take things a certain way. It's a bit like the Christmas thing. When obviously having a Christmas special every year, you are worried that they're going to sort of do it not just nice, but over nice, so it becomes a bit cringy and a bit sort of group hug, and that's the problem I have with the Christmas special, is that there's a fine line between making something Christmassy and making something a bit rich in terms of the old sickness, the gag factor, I suppose, like where it all gets a bit. Everyone's a bit nice, and the endings are very jolly, and they all pull a cracker at the end and go, "Oh, look, it's Christmas Day," and everyone looks up at the stars and goes, "You know what? You're right." So yeah, that's what I have about Christmas, really.
That's not to say that all Christmas specials are bad.
No, I it depends on the content. I mean, I love sort of. I mean, Rusty Davies years ago, when he did interviews about when we had the first Christmas specials, his thing was, "Oh, I love Christmas specials." He would say in his Welsh voice, which I almost hinted at.
I was going to say, I didn't realise he came from Wolverhampton.
Came from Wolverhampton, yes. Yeah, another exclusive. But yeah, I can remember reading an interview or seeing an interview with him where he said that he loved Christmas specials as a person, as an individual. He and his family would, or presumably he would just lap them up. He loved the Christmas specials. He thought they were always very funny or very lovely, and seemingly without exception.
Yeah.
But I can remember when I was growing up that the Christmas special was always something you look forward to. But it's a bit like a Christmas. It's a bit like a Children in Need thing where you go into it thinking, "I'll watch it," but it's always a bit disappointing because your expectations are raised that you think, "Oh, this will be where they pull the stops out," and you come away thinking, "Well, perhaps wasn't as good as all that," because they kind of have this aura of specialness about them.
I think there's a nostalgia factor. If you look back, back when I was a kid. Certain things you'd look forward to, so you'd see like the Christmas idents coming up on BBC, and that would be quite cool. That would kind of get you a bit excited. I'll probably take your point a little bit on the Christmas specials. Things like, UK staples would be things like Morecambe and Wise and the Two Ronnies. They would generally be pretty decent.
They'd be pretty. I'd go with that, and Dad's Army and a few other shows.
Yeah,
but I think they were done at a time when perhaps over time Christmas has become more marketed by the BBC, so it's like a time when they form part of the schedules in a massive way. There's a lot more build up, a lot more press attention, and I think that there's now a pressure on these things to be a certain type of thing. So I take your point. Certainly there are Christmas specials. There are Christmas films. I like Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yes.
Is a work of genius.
Now that is a staple in our household.
Yeah.
Every Christmas Eve, without fail, we watch that film.
It's fantastic. It's funny. It's musical in just the right way. It's got the Muppets in it. It's perfect. It's pitch perfect. But then I can't imagine you as your family thinking, "Oh, we're going to pull out my family Christmas special from 3 years ago."
No,
and so there's clearly an element of quality here.
Of course.
There's quality.
Yeah.
And I think with Doctor Who, because obviously we absorb as fans, we absorb the entire canon. We have to then absorb the Christmas specials as well.
Yeah.
So we have to sort of ratify them in terms of quality as what they are.
Well, they've become a bit standalone, haven't they? They haven't really. I'm trying to think of any that have really kind of fitted into any kind of plot arcs or anything like that.
Well, you've got the Christmas Invasion with David Tennant's first one.
Yeah.
I mean, I had misgivings about that as well because I don't. For me, a Christmas special should be a bit standalone.
Yeah.
So that if it's a bit crap, you could turn around and say it doesn't matter.
count. Yeah.
But because if it's Tennant's first one, you're thinking in all the listings from years to come, when people talk about Power of the Daleks being Troughton's first and Castrovalva being Davison's first, and you've got the Christmas Invasion being Tennant's first, and Christmas Invasion as a title, as a Christmas special, fine. Yeah. But as a Doctor's first story, it's got to be good as a first story and as a story in its own right because it's quite a big thing. And if you have something that's a bit fluffy, luckily Christmas Invasion gets away with it.
Yeah, it's a great story.
But I think if Christmas Invasion was being made now, perhaps it would, there's more chance of it messing up. It's not, because I think the Christmas Invasion was a novelty. It was Tennant's first one. It was one of the first invasion stories of that kind, so it was a sense of, this is a bit new. But then you have to look at Runaway Bride, which came the year after, which was a very similar kind of story.
Yeah, even to the point of having the same Santa robots, although slightly reimagined.
And I think if that had been Tennant's first one, how infuriating would that be that you've got a frivolous piece of rubbish as a Doctor's first, the first story that can be special in its own way without the Christmas trappings, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't do Celebration.
As you may have gathered by now, dear listener. Yeah.
But I don't mind. As I say, I love people coming together. I like it, but I don't like the enforced motifs of it. The kind of I'm bored of Santa. I'm bored of, and I don't think I speak of that. I don't think I'm saying that as just purely as an adult, because even when I was a kid, every year when the sort of the Christmas cards come out and it's all the same things, the jingle bell sound, and that didn't turn me on about Christmas. What I liked was the fact that you got time off school, and you could watch television, and there were a few new programs. It was the nice food. It was people being nice to each other.
Yeah.
Why can't people be nice all the time? Why do we have to do it just at Christmas, Mark? I don't understand. When
you're a complex character, really. You're bitter, but you're also an optimist.
I think I'm bitter in a reasonable way. I don't think I'm sagging off things and saying that should all be put in a lead-lined box and dumped into the centre of Jupiter. I'm not saying we go to the extent of eradicating Christmas, but I'm
glad you didn't say Uranus.
I was being so proper and everything. But what I was going to say, it's a bit like I think the motifs of Christmas are a bit like the commercialisation of Christmas, which I think a lot of us do. Not despise, but I think we do question. Yeah. I don't think we don't mind an element of that, but I think it's when it gets out of hand. And I think when you have the sort of the festive feeling and all the motifs, I said motifs a lot. I'm not going to use it ever again tonight.
You're starting to sound like George Lucas.
I am. Am I?
Yeah.
I just put the gun in my mouth now. When I think it's nice to have a Christmas special that doesn't necessarily trade off the usual things that have become a bit familiar. It's like what we're saying about the Dickens thing. Now Moffat has gone down the Dickens route. Yeah. So now we've got, the trailer for this year, we've now got more of an Ebenezer Scrooge thing. Yeah. And we've got snowmen, which we haven't had yet, which was always going to happen. Yeah. Because it's something that hasn't been tapped. Next year are we going to have Killer Robins? Are we going to have?
I hope so.
Are we going to have stop motion maggots that made out of tinsel that comes off trees like maggots.
Reindeer with laser noses?
Yeah. Presents that aren't presents. Where will this end? Mince pies that talk back. Where will it end? Every year it's going to become more and more desperate. And I think that's what happened with last year's. Yeah. It was like it was rooting around to try and find the Christmas thing that Doctor Who could plagiarise and build upon, to give that festive feel to it. So it picked The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe.
Just fell a bit flat, really, didn't it?
Yeah, because as I said, it wasn't doing anything new with it. It was trading too much off the sort of the magic, if in inverted commas, of the original item, of the original source. So it wasn't doing anything that spectacular with it. And I think this year, there was a line in the trailer that said, what was it? The snow's thinking, or the snow feeds off your thoughts. And I'm thinking, well, that's. It kind of sounded obvious when that something like that would happen. So it might just be a curveball to make us think, it's about the snow, and it's not really, because these trailers do tend to do that. But I'm thinking it probably could happen because that's the sort of thing that would happen, because it's going to be about the snow this year and about the snowmen. So. And you've got Richard E. Grant being an Ebenezer type character, and you quoting
an iconic actor
being used like Michael Gambon was used, in a kind of cliched way, I said I was going to feed you, but I didn't say to what. Ho, ho, ho. They've taken a line of an original piece of dialogue from a book, and they put a little bit of a spin on it. But for me, the source is too obvious. It's an obvious thing to do, and it's not being. It should be telling stories. I don't mind there being snow. I don't mind there being like The Next Doctor.
Yeah.
But it's got to have its own.
It should stand up on its own.
It should stand up on its own, and you can watch it in August, and it will make you go, "That's a good story."
I mean, I know you can't always go by trailers, but I felt quite positive after seeing that.
I wanted to, but I couldn't, because I'm thinking I hark back to last year's and the fact that the run of the Christmas stories we've had. I mean, if you think about the other ones we haven't talked about yet, which what was it? What was I can't think of? Oh, Voyage of the Damned.
Yeah.
Which was another one where it took an idea, the Poseidon Adventure, your typical Irwin Allen disaster thing, and it did basically nothing too special with it. It just, because I watched it actually a few months back, thinking maybe I was too harsh.
Yeah.
And I watched the first few minutes. I actually thought maybe I got it wrong, because the first few minutes of that are really taut, really interesting. It introduces the characters. I got really, this is actually quite good.
Yeah.
But the moment. I don't know if anyone else has spotted this in podcast land, but the moment those meteorites hit, whatever it is, hit,
Yeah.
Within the space of 30 seconds, the dialogue, the script, it becomes cliched, it becomes dull, it becomes moronic. The characters just suddenly become, I say in inverted commas, they come alive.
Yeah.
And all that had been set up previously, I just found myself struggling to like it, because the moment they hit, when they're all in the corridor and they're all staggering around, all the main characters we come to know and love throughout the rest of the story, I'm thinking, there's a definite change in style and approach to how it's written.
Yeah.
And when it's building up mystery, when it's trying to be a bit engaging, when they put effort put into the beginning, it works.
Yeah.
But the moment it slips into its cliche, you're then sort of... the interest for me wanes. It's like, well, now you've built it up and it's quite interesting. It's like you've reverted to this kind of stock way of doing things, and that's what the Poseidon Adventure thing did for me. It was, and it wasn't really done that well, because a lot of it is CGI, a lot of it is very obvious. I mean, that had angels in that.
Yeah.
We've done angels now.
Yeah.
That's another thing. We've done Santa Claus. We've done angels. As I say, it's going to be talking tinsel. It's going to be carol singers with knives. I don't know. So yeah, I find this insistence on filling it with.
But
usual
somebody
things.
must like it, because if I'm not mistaken, Voyage of the Damned was the top-rated episode since it's come back. Am I right on that?
No, I think the Stolen Earth, the last.
Yeah,
I think that
could
one was
well
the
be.
top.
But I mean,
This
it's
was
certainly up and around the sort of the double figures of millions.
It was the second. Yeah, it was the second most watched, I think.
Yeah.
And that's. But I think I watched it. We all watched it. That's the problem. Just because something is watched. I mean, Kylie Minogue was in it, which even now I think Kylie Minogue was in Doctor Who, and that's fantastic. But I wish her character had been a bit more interesting. Again, she became this kind of simple, straightforward, unmemorable,
generic sort of companion, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and she didn't do anything. Yeah, I mean, they even sort of aged her a bit and made her. Some might say more refined and more intellectual, but I found her dull. I would have liked if she'd had a bit more life to her, a bit of an angle to her. If they'd sort of made her, given
Bit more
her,
feisty.
or just a character trait. Because when you have these characters that are introduced as one-offs, like if, for instance, if someone said to me, write a Doctor Who and it's going to have Kylie Minogue in it, I think to myself, what can I do with Kylie Minogue that no one would dare do with Kylie Minogue? I don't mean that. I mean kind of, I would do something where I would make her. I'd make her play against type.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't try and sort of play to a kind of Downton Abbey sort of pretension about the character. I wouldn't put her in a maid's outfit and have her earnest but nice and sort of a semi-companion. I think, well, why not try and do something a bit more... I can't believe Kylie Minogue just said that.
Yeah.
Or did that. I can't believe she kind of... And I would have done that. I would have really liked to have done something special. But I come away from the Christmas special thinking, what did she do there? How was it special? I mean, it was great to have her in it, and it was great to see Geoffrey Palmer back. And I actually liked it when George Costigan came along at the end as Max Capricorn.
Yeah,
a lot of people didn't like him,
but
that's when I woke
keen.
up. I woke up because at that point I was like, ooh, because it was a gobby man with weird teeth in a bubble car.
I like the actor. I forget his name now, which is really annoying. Who plays Mr. Copper?
Oh, Clive Swift.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
And of course, he was in Doctor Who before.
He was in
wasn't
Doctor Who before, but I like the idea of doing something a bit special. I don't mind them having sort of token gestures of Christmas, like the snow, because it snows. When we think about it, it snows for a big chunk of the year. You know, it can be a good few weeks of the year it can snow for. And when you think about Doctor Who in the past, it hasn't snowed very often. I mean, Claws of Axos, I think, and they, you know, gave an excuse for that. But there's very few stories where it actually snows. So you think there should be more stories set in snow. So I don't mind that because that fits in with my okay, let's have a snow. I don't mind snow.
Yeah, it's incidental rather.
It's incidental rather than, and this is the problem with Doctor Who, where I mean, I love the spinning Christmas tree.
Yeah,
that was the highlight of the episode for me. But the problem is because that was a success. What we're talking about, I think we might have talked about this last time, was what's called Robert Holmes syndrome.
Yeah,
where it's like we've had Christmas trees that let's make them kill people. And every time they've got to try and think of new ways of doing the same thing. So this year it's going to be snowmen. Let's have snowmen with teeth. You know?
So I think we've established that you're not so keen on the Doctor Who Christmas specials.
I want to. Don't get me wrong. I really want to, but I find myself sort of watching them and thinking, the money they spend on it, the anticipation, do something special with it. Do something that makes me go, I want to watch this again immediately, and not like, well, that's a Christmas special. It was meant to be crap, because I don't believe we should be watching something and thinking it was meant. That's kind of an excuse. Really.
Yeah.
We're excusing it by saying, "Oh, don't worry, it's meant to be crap because it's Christmas. No one expects anything at Christmas." Well, I do. But we're not all stupid. We're not. Some, you know, your auntie will fall asleep through that as equally as she would fall asleep through, I don't know, Ghostlight.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter what's on.
Yeah.
Because if you're engaging with it and it grips you, you will watch it. And I think it's as simple as that.
So if you're not watching the Doctor Who Christmas special, you probably will.
I will. No, I'm not saying I'm not going to watch it, but I kind of want to expect. I want it to be good.
So what is there anything that you do watch at Christmas that is like a tradition for you? That I mentioned the Muppets Christmas Carol just now. That's a tradition.
I think we in cult TV land live in a slightly different world to the rest of. You know, because we tend to watch things made years ago, for example.
Yeah.
So our calendars are already screwy. I don't think we sort of adhere to things. I know some people do, like some people stick on Box of Delights on a yearly basis.
That's another one of mine.
That's another one. Oh, you do it as well, do you? Oh, right. So I appreciate,
I think it turns out I'm beginning to be one of those people you're not that keen on.
No, I think it's I think it's fine to watch certain things if they're good in themselves. Like Box of Delight is quality television.
Yeah.
Again, what I want to try and do is to try and yes, I can be a Grinch in some ways, but I think it's not unreasonable. It's not because, you know, I believe people. I love Christmas when people come together.
Yeah. I
love good food. I love people being nice to each other. But my argument is, why can't we be nice all the time? Why is it only for about 2 weeks of the year when everyone's everyone's excited to be alive? You know, why can't we give people gifts once a month? Rather than just in one burst at Christmas. You know, why can't we just give a present like to our kids every now and again?
It's going to get expensive.
No, but then you don't have Christmas, you see, because you have it spread out. If people were nice all the time, wouldn't that be nice?
Won't that take away the specialness?
But life should be special all the time. I think people rely on Christmas to solve all their ills. And there's a lot of pressure on Christmas to be perfect. And this is where the Doctor Who thing... It's almost like any disappointment can be magnified because you're all sat there with your family. People who don't always watch Doctor Who, you kind of want them to you want to show them something. This is why we watch Doctor Who, Auntie. It's because it's got this in it.
Yeah.
And of course, when they see something a bit basic and a bit moronic, they'll probably go, well, you know, is that it? Whereas if they were watching something which genuinely was well written and brilliant, but not necessarily Christmassy, they might go, oh, this is the first time I've seen it. Do you know what? I might watch it when it comes back.
Yeah.
You know, so it's an advert. Really, Doctor Who. It's an advert for what Doctor Who. It's a showcase of what Doctor Who can do. And I think when it wastes its chance to show off, if you like, then I think you kind of as a fan, you're disappointed in yourself, but also what other people might be watching. You know, these are the ones that are most watched for Doctor Who, and you want to show off what it can do.
What it can do, yeah.
And it's not just being, you know, throwaway rubbish, which it veers towards, I think.
Now we have had a little bit of feedback, not masses this time round. Jenny Shirt, otherwise known as Bluebox99 on Twitter. Hi Jenny. She emailed in with just a few of her favourites. So we've got, she likes the Polar Express.
I love the Polar Express. That's another one.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
We're on to a winner here, Jenny.
And
you like something.
And I watched it in September and it was still a good film. I didn't have to watch it
Wow.
at Christmas.
Yeah.
You know,
Muppet Christmas Carol.
we've established that's
Yes.
work of genius.
So we're getting to the point where we've come to the conclusion Jenny's got really good taste. Yeah,
I like Jenny.
yeah, I do too.
Yeah, she's cool.
Labyrinth.
Labyrinth. Yes, that's one.
Yes.
It's not really a Christmas film.
No,
but
but it's a traditional thing that
it's in
she
my-
watches every Christmas.
it's in my
you see.
top 5 films ever.
Yeah.
Labyrinth, absolutely.
Yeah, Miracle on 34th Street.
Never seen it.
There's many versions of that as well, but yeah,
Does she say which one?
she doesn't elaborate.
Ah.
She's keeping you guessing, Peter.
She's leaving podcast land
Yeah,
hanging.
yeah. And White Christmas.
Never seen it.
Me either. Which I feel slightly remiss. I should have watched.
We're going to have to do a nerdology where we're forced to watch these things and talk about them.
Yeah. Now she does say she loves the Doctor Who Christmas specials. It's always a big must for her. So, there is an audience.
There is. Oh, there's an audience. I don't doubt that. Yeah.
And she just finishes off by saying the royal family and outnumbered a definite watch to, plus any Morecambe and Wise if it's on the telly.
Got to say, the
So
Royal
that's-
Family Christmas specials, I really love. I
Yeah.
think they're great
Mhm.
because they're good in their own right. They
Yeah.
it just happens to be set at Christmas.
Yeah.
The formula for that is brilliant. I could watch hours of that.
So thank you for that, Jenny.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. We're
All right.
recording this on the 24th.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do yesterday, Mark?
How
How did you celebrate Doctor Who?
Well, I went onto the local community radio station with a bunch of other nerds and talked about Doctor Who for a couple of hours.
What did you do to celebrate it yourself? How do you celebrate these things? Because people do celebrate.
Normally, I will sort of dig out an episode of, favourite episode of Doctor Who and watch it. So
See, I don't do that.
you don't.
I don't. But I know there are lots of people online who, when it comes to the sort of 23rd of November,
Yeah.
people will say that they watch Unearthly Child religiously, or
Mm-hmm.
they'll watch a story, or they'll watch, and of course we've got the 50th anniversary coming
Yeah.
up next year, and people who are really into these anniversary things put a lot of pressure on something special has got to be done.
Yeah.
So this is the weird thing, is that I don't have that in me at all. Yesterday I acknowledge it's 49 years old. Well done, Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But I don't feel the need to put something on to celebrate it because I celebrate it by just loving it and liking it. I don't
Yeah.
feel the need to kind of show to myself that I've got to prove it by watching something and going, "Oh, Doctor Who, that's why I love you." I don't have that in me. I don't understand how that works. Because the 50th anniversary, it ties in with the DVD range finishing. And talk in the last sort of year has been about people starting from the beginning and doing marathons.
Yeah.
And it seems a logical thing to do. And I'm going to be doing that, not
Yeah.
because it's the 50th anniversary, but because they're all out on DVD. And it tickles me to be able to watch, the idea of watching them all from the beginning as
Yeah.
much as I can, and that really does tickle me. But I'm not doing it to tie in, because people are doing it in such a way as if to say, are you going to, when people, you read threads and forums and people's views, and they say, "Oh, I'm going to time it so that Five Doctors or something will be on the same day as the anniversary, or I'll finish watching
That's
them all
possibly taking
on the
it a
same
bit
day."
far.
But people do. People have this sense of occasion where,
Yeah.
where they do decide that whatever they're up to in the marathon has to somehow time it well.
I mean, I'm not
in
sure
some
about
way.
taking it that far, but I think November the 23rd is an important date in Doctor Who history, and why not?
And how do you feel about the onus on having a 50th anniversary celebratory story? Is that something you inside demand as a fan?
I think it'd be wrong not to have some kind of recognition of it. For a show with, towards the end of its original run, it had a pretty turbulent existence, and for people who love it dearly to be able to celebrate 50 years later, I think it should be celebrated in some fashion.
I think so too, but my argument of celebrating it is to celebrate it with a good story. It's a bit like Christmas, and this is why I kind of...
I'm not
mention it.
arguing to have a rubbish story. I just like to point that out.
But no, it's in terms of... because obviously what's happened is that when anniversaries in Doctor Who tend to be celebrated a certain way, and this is a bit like the whole Christmas thing. It's like we've got to have multi-Doctor stories. That's the tradition that's now... It's come to happen. Because it happened in the 10th anniversary and we had it for the 20th.
Yeah.
It's now become, with the talk of the 50th, that's what people expect.
Yeah.
And whereas
So
personally...
you're asking for what we had at the 25th anniversary?
Hmm?
Bit of gold nemesis?
A bit of gold now. And this time it's serious.
Mm.
No, it's just that thing of... Because the problem I have with any multi-Doctor story is that... I hate to say this, I hate to break it to people, but some of them are dead. They're all
that had
dead.
crossed my mind, yeah.
They're all dead, Dave. You know, that's what I was meant to say. They're all dead, Dave. The three doctors who started it all, and who I would get the biggest kick out of seeing return, are dead.
Yeah.
I would kill to see Troughton come back for an anniversary story. That'd be fantastic. But that's partly because he's dead. If he was alive and he was doing interviews and also he was involved with fandom, you know, and we'd see him age a bit more, the sort of joy of seeing him back in it, perhaps I think would be lessened in some way. I mean, what makes Three Doctors special is the fact that Troughton, when I came to see it and watch it, he was already dead. So it was kind of more Troughton. It was more Troughton.
Right.
Precious Little exists anyway.
Yeah.
So that's what makes that special for me. It's not because it's a multi-Doctor thing, and I feel like it's celebrating the show because they're all there. It's because I'm seeing more of a Doctor who, fortunately, is alive no more. Is a bit of an enigma because his era doesn't exist all that much.
We're ever hopeful that stuff will come back.
Oh, of course. And next year we've got the Galaxy 4 episode, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But for me, the idea of having Doctors return because they should. I mean, as much as I love Colin Baker and I love all the actors as people, you know, I think a lot of them are really screwed on people. They're fantastic. The idea of then seeing them back again in the series, looking so different.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you explain away in the plot like they did with Peter Davison in Time Crash.
Yeah.
Now, Time Crash for me was brilliant.
Yeah.
That did what Doctor Who should do when it does these sort of things. Because it was clever.
Yeah.
It was like a love letter to Doctor Who. It was sweet. It was well written. It didn't outstay its welcome. It was short, punchy. It did what it should. But when
that does give me a little bit of faith in Stephen Moffat that he can do a decent job of it.
I think certainly he will, and I'm sure he'll explain away the fact they look different. And you'd have to, because as much as I love these people, Colin Baker is completely different. I can't equate with Colin Baker how he looks now. I mean, again, what we've got to remember is when 3 Doctors and 5 Doctors were done, the Doctors had only been out of the role for a short time.
Yeah.
So they looked relatively similar.
Yeah.
But with the time difference now, I mean, Tom Baker is obviously a completely different man. The past is a different country, as they say, and Tom Baker looks completely different. They all look completely different, really, to be absolutely honest.
I mean, Paul McGann doesn't look too different from when he was last in the role, so he could just about get away with that.
And because we didn't see too much of him, you can sort of squint and think, that's probably how he would have looked in his second season. You know? But it's a very odd thing, because Colin Baker even looked different in Trial of a Time Lord. Yeah, I noticed that. He's a lot chubbier, and his hair is obviously completely mad.
Yeah,
and you do notice these things, so you can kind of sort of deal with it on that level, I think. But I'm not one of these people who, because it's the 50th next year, wants necessarily a reunion story. I mean, I'd like it to be a good story. I'd like there to be things in it that are fan pleasing.
Yeah,
and
I think it should be a celebration. I don't know if you need to shoehorn in every single reference. I mean, I don't want it to get to... As much as I love Paul McGann in the role, the TV movie is so jam-packed with continuity that I find it a bit irritating at times.
A bit distracting.
Yeah.
And I think that's what... I mean, this is why I think Doctor Who has its own mythology now. It's a bit like Christmas again, where it's got its own motifs. It's got the idea of having all these Doctors brought together, perhaps with companions, perhaps with monsters, recognition of the past in some way. So it would probably have a Gallifrey link to it. So Gallifrey has now become the celebratory thing, I think, as well as a byproduct of that. So you've also you've got a limited amount of screen time to show off so many elements of the show that they cannot help but be tokenistic.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it can work. Like with Five Doctors, walks that line between bearable and not bearable. I mean, I like it because I think the Sidemen come out of it brilliantly. Yeah. It's nice to see them as a kind of a rogue units trying to sort things out. Obviously, it's great to see Troughton and Pertwee back again because they're dead now. Yeah. Because there's an added air of, they're not alive. It's nice to have just a bit more of them. And because not many interviews exist, they're almost like enigmatic figures compared to how the Doctors are now, where we have a lot of archive footage, or all their episodes exist. We have a lot of interviews with them. They're very present. And again, I think a lot of these things, it's like 2 Doctors. What makes 2 Doctors special is really because it's Troughton.
A chance for another adventure.
And of course, I suppose you could say really that in years to come, once these new Doctors have died, once Tom Baker and Peter Davison and Colin Baker have died, having new adventures, we might look at them in the same way.
Yeah, possibly.
Possibly, but then I'd be thinking, well, I would prefer what they did with 2 Doctors and just having 1 Doctor. Focus on the one.
Yeah.
What makes 2 Doctors quite interesting is that it gets it more right than the other reunion stories because you've only got Troughton.
Yeah.
It's not trying to shoehorn in the other Doctors. No. And it is, okay, the story might not be it might not be as good as it could be, but you feel that it's a story in its own right.
Yeah.
And it has a chance to breathe. It's breathing wrongly.
It's got a touch of asthma.
It's got a touch of asthma. It's a bit winded. But
I'm allowed to say that because I get asthma. So
he's allowed to say that. It's absolutely fine. We can talk about asthma. But it's a story in its own right. So 2 Doctors out of those multi-Doctor stories, for me, it gets it more right because it's not trying to be a special, and tonally, it's not trying to be a slightly jovial celebration. I mean, I think the one that gets it right the most is the 3 Doctors because Hartnell not being in it all that much, it is basically Troughton, and Troughton's on top. I think it's the best Troughton we have.
Yeah.
I love Troughton in that.
So I love that rivalry between him and John Pertwee as well.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and because it's not trying to be a celebration in quite the same way that 5 Doctors was. 5 Doctors was a different kind of story, and the idea of having Richard Hurndall back for me wasn't. I can never look at him and go, that's Hartnell. No. I don't get that buzz that you're supposed to get. It's the idea that if they brought them back now,
I feel a bit sorry for him because it puts him in a very awkward position. Obviously,
it's impossible.
He's got a chance, to play a role in what was then a very big production.
Yeah.
It's.
But I can never see that as Hartnell because it's not Hartnell. No. And I think nowadays, the argument of trying to bring back the Dead Doctors, if you got new actors playing with them, that'd be terrible. Now they might be good, might be able to do a sort of a good likey voice maybe, and they might have similarities. Yeah. But I will know in my heart of hearts that they're not that Doctor. It's not them, and that they're covering. Even if Moffat excuses them, gives them a reason to be there, they might say, "Oh, they look different because they've been a bit like Mind Robbers, Jamie's face. Yeah. The Doctor built his own face and cocked it up." Even if they do that,
it's not.
You're aware that they're covering...
In the back of your mind, it's always there.
You always know that they're covering dead tracks. Yeah. And I think that's a bit sad. And it's not going to convince me. And that's what I have, the problem I have is that unless they were to do convincing CGI, and we are talking facially identical... Photorealistic. I'm going to say perfect. Has to be perfect CGI. Which then I might suspend my disbelief because I wouldn't tell the difference. Unless they do that and a bloody good vocal artist... I'm genuinely not going to be able to suspend my disbelief because I can't with Hurndall. I can only just about with Doctors who, look a bit. I like Troughton in 5 Doctors and 2 Doctors. He does look a bit different. Yeah, but he looks just enough the same.
Particularly in 2 Doctors, obviously
with his hair,
a bit older and
face and craggy, and you're aware that he's not as nimble and he's not as agile. And I'm working with it, but even then I'm aware he's an older version. Yeah. So how am I going to fare with Tom Baker?
Yeah, quite.
And I say, even if they explain away his age, I'm always going to be aware that it's the same man but not the same man. Yeah. And that's going to be unsatisfactory for me personally. Yeah. I mean, some people will be happy with that, and I'm not saying that people won't. Some people really like the idea of them all coming together, and it doesn't matter what they look like. It's the fact that they're the actors.
Hi, this is Fraser Hines, Jamie McCrimmon from Doctor Who, and you're listening to Nerdology.
But at the end of the day, they are different. They are different now to how they were, and I think in terms of the story, the story is important here. It's got to engage and be convincing because the moment you get the moment, it's a bit like the Christmas thing. The moment you're aware of what it's trying to do, it takes you out of the story. Yeah. It takes you out of it. It's a bit like when you know that, for instance, towards the end, it's a bit like in the Christmas Carol story where you get the shark on the sleigh flying through the skyline. I'm aware of what it's trying to do there, and it's a bit sort of in your face. It's trying to crowbar in. It's taking the shark thing, which was an interesting idea, but turning it into a reindeer, and I know that that's what it was there to do all along. Yeah. And I think that's what really that's how I feel about the multi-doctor stories. You know, the idea that you know they're going to have to sort of crowbar in, however cleverly,
explanations,
reasons. But I'll know why they've done it, each thing.
Yeah.
I'll know why they've had sort of Tom Baker looking like he does now.
Yeah.
Probably wearing, you know, a caftan and a big poncho, and he probably sitting. And I will know that they've tried to get around it through through.
I'm wondering if they might not just have them in little cameos as different characters, maybe.
But then I'd kind of want them to be, if they play different characters, it's a bit, I don't know,
That's difficult,
that's
isn't it?
distracting as well, because you know it's Tom Baker.
It's a no-win situation, really.
It's a no-win, you can't do anything about it. And I think that's the unfortunate thing, where it's one of those things that you cannot, unless all the Doctors are alive, it's fairly new. I mean, to be honest, if they were to do, I think David Tennant's obviously fairly recent, he looks the same, they can get away with that. I mean, actually what I would have liked to have seen, and this is a point I can talk about just for about 2 minutes, is what I would have liked to have seen with multi-Doctor stories is for them to have happened a lot more often around the time of the previous Doctor, if you like.
Yeah.
And just had fun with the idea of a Doctor, 2 Doctors in the same place, undoing each other's work.
Yeah.
And little clever runaround. So, for instance, it would have been nice if during Troughton's era, perhaps in his first season, you just had him going into Hartnell, turning up on the scene of one of his adventures. And then sort of, and perhaps they can misinterpret each other or play against each other,
causing him
trouble. To be honest, there are hundreds of stories you could do like that. And if it was a regular thing where every Doctor has its own, has a sort of a previous Doctor story where they just happen to stumble across, or not necessarily the previous Doctor, perhaps a couple of Doctors in advance, maybe where they still look a bit similar, but just have fun with that. And to make it kind of, there are a few beliefs I have. I believe that every Doctor should have, more than one Dalek story, because that's what I don't like about the 80s Doctors, is they only have one Dalek story to get it right as well. Because if you have Resurrection, which is rubbish, you've then ruined your only Dalek story for Davison. How sad. And I think obviously one Sideman story is a tradition, even though I think there should be more side, again, like the Daleks, you don't want to waste it all. I think I'd like to see every Doctor have a historical story as a tradition. I think it'd be nice to have a purely historical story.
A straight one.
With no pseudo-historical, just a purely historical, just for one story for each Doctor. Just so they have a chance to do a different type of story, where it's more to do with court politics. It's a bit more Shakespearean, a bit more involved as characters. And then I'd also like to see, let's say, the tradition of having perhaps a story with a previous Doctor in a story which it just messes around with people, undoing each other's work, perhaps working together,
bit like
perhaps peeing each other off,
using the dreaded word Star Trek, when they did an episode called The Trouble with Tribbles.
Oh right.
Where they go back, it must have been an anniversary that year, and they go back to an original series story, and they kind of superimpose the Deep Space Nine crew onto the original Enterprise.
Yeah, perhaps do something like that. I mean, perhaps back in the day of Troutman and Hartnell and John Pertwee, that would have been quite hard to do, because they'd have to reference the episodes in question. Yeah. And they just simply they wouldn't have the time or the inclination, I think, to have done that. But I think because of the age we live in now, where Doctor Who is quite involved and people are aware of the complexity of stories, how clever they can be. I think the opportunity of having multi-Doctor stories, I think, should be more. It's quite exciting, but I'd like to see multi-Doctor stories for say more recent Doctors. So I think Tennant would be a good one because he looks similar. He's got the same sort of vibe about him. You can believe it's the same character, and there's no question of, you're not questioning his age particularly. Obviously you will to a point, but you're not gonna. It's not going to be something that you will look at that sort of distracts you from what's going on. In the same way as I say about the Christmas motifs of the new Christmas episodes, where you're distracted by what they're trying to do. And I think the moment you get taken out of a story with the best of intentions, but the moment you get taken out of it, a part of that magic of the story, the sort of the actual, it's gone, because it's a bit. I say postmodern is the wrong word, I suspect, but it is kind of postmodern as well. I don't know. It's being obviously referential in some way, and I find that, as I say, quite distracting. It does spoil it for me. So that's the problem I have with Christmas stories. Basically, is they are or with certain celebratory stories. I say 2 Doctors gets away. I did contradict myself earlier on, just to clarify. I think 2 Doctors in essence gets it right, because it's deliberately trying to do a non-celebratory story with Troughton. It's got a good number of episodes. It's got a story there, so that's what it does. That's what that gets right. Two Doctors gets it right because it's more light-hearted, but without being stupid. Troughton's only just been in it, so that's wonderful. So he looks the same. The actual banter between Pertwee and Troughton is wonderful because it's actually really funny and it just really gels. It's wonderful. So that works, and obviously it's the first time it happens. So there's a novelty value there. But for me, Five Doctors is the way that it would have to be done now because there's so many Doctors. The idea of having loads of Doctors, that's the only way you could do it. It's like Five Doctors.
Yeah.
And my argument with Five Doctors is that when Terrance Dicks was writing it, and he had the issues of having to do rewrite upon rewrite because he wasn't sure who was going to be in it.
Yeah.
My argument was for that would be really, he should have known who was going to be in it. He should have given himself enough time to write it. So if Tom Baker had agreed initially, they should have got him to sign a contract to say he would definitely be in it.
Yeah.
If he's sort of ummed but they weren't sure, and they reached that cut-off point where he hasn't signed to say he will definitely do it, then he can't do it. Then Terrance Dicks shouldn't be writing.
Contingency.
Yeah, it's like Terrance Dicks should have had a script. He should have had enough time that he knew he could write it in. Contract should have been signed at the last available point when they can agree to do it. If Tom Baker hadn't signed it, then they should work on the fact he's not going to be in it. They've got Troughton and Pertwee potentially signed up. Work with those, make that story good, and don't try and work around Tom Baker or don't try to fit him in because you've promised. Because if you don't have Hartnell in it anyway, you can. I'd rather they just focused on Pertwee and Baker and given them more airtime, rather than, certainly in the case of Hartnell, using a pretender to the throne who isn't as good, and having him talk. I'd like to have seen John Pertwee in that sequence with the Dalek, or have Troughton in with the Dalek. That would have been wonderful. We'd lap up those scenes much more, I think, than seeing Richard Hurnell there. And Richard Hurnell is a good actor. I've seen him in other things, and he's a good, there's nothing against him, but it's just you cannot replicate someone who isn't. It's a bit like the argument of trying to fit, missing episodes. My dad used to always say, "Do you know what they should do for those missing episodes?" And I'd say, "What, Dad?" And he'd go, "They should remake them, but with new actors or for the new series." And I'm thinking, yeah, but it will never be the same because the part of the joy of those is the way that they were. Yeah, it's the way Troughton was. It's the way William Hartnell was. The buzz I get from seeing the old stuff. Yeah, it is very specific to that old stuff. I hate to use the word charm because I think that's a bit patronising. Look at the charming old episodes, aren't they charming? That's a bit to suggest, that they're rubbish, whatever. But it's not. It's because of what they are, and you with the best will in the world, you cannot hope to replicate what the original was about, what made it work. It's the old actors, the character actors around at the time who came from a different class of television. It's a different television production, the values. It's the way they were done, and I know, I sound a bit sort of dismissive, and I think there are lots of people just saying, "Oh, get a grip," Peter, just bloody hell, watch it and enjoy it. But you've got to enjoy it for reasons that you believe in, and if you don't believe in it, then it means nothing to me.
Okay, Peter's about to have a mental breakdown.
No, I love the fact that I'm so assured in my beliefs, and I feel that at least I've managed. I hope I've explained myself. I expect there are people, as I say, who aren't going to understand what I'm getting on about, and probably you could say, "Oh, I'm being too deep," but I think I didn't come to these things with those views in mind and then want to adhere to them. I was dissatisfied with things and then wondered why. And I've analysed why I'm dissatisfied with, say, Five Doctors. Yeah. I mean, Five Doctors is my earliest memory of Doctor Who, so you'd think I'd like it. Yeah. And I like bits of it, but I don't have that. Just because it was the first story I can remember, I don't have that. I don't believe in nostalgia. I think nostalgia is something to excuse, potentially. It's to look beyond what something is into something it isn't. And just because I watched Five Doctors, it was my earliest memory of Doctor Who, and I can remember quite a few bits of it. When I first came to see it, I was obviously intrigued about my memories, about, it's going to be a story that I can... But when I came to watch it, once I'd got over the buzz of seeing those moments again, I'm left with a story I have to take on its own terms. And I can't fool myself into thinking that just because it's Five Doctors, it's my earliest memory, just because it's a celebratory story, in the same way I can't excuse Christmas ones just because they're Christmas. Yeah. Because I think that's excusing what the thing is. And I can't lie to myself, Mark. I'm honest. I'm true. I'm me, Mark.
So you're not nostalgic?
I'm not nostalgic.
No. Well, for those of you that are, I get a little plug in here. We did have some more feedback from John Rivers on Twitter. Hi, John.
Hello.
He very kindly sent us a link to a blog that he did last year, which I actually read and very much enjoyed, and it's called Xmas Spesh. So if you go to xmasspesh.wordpress.com, and you'll be able to see some very nostalgic old Christmas specials from the BBC via a handy little link on YouTube that he submits in there. And it's really good. I enjoyed it.
I would enjoy
Peter's
it
a curmudgeon, so he won't like it.
No. I think it's great because I will always love those early ones that I saw because they got me into Doctor Who. So there will always be a place in my heart for certain things because obviously it's part of the whole thing that got me into Doctor Who. But at the same time, it's tempered with the quality of it. So I can't always go, just because that was my earliest memory, therefore I can defend things through childlike eyes. That's the thing. I watch things as a child anyway. I love sort of inanity. I love stupidity because I think that's part of what Doctor Who can be. It should be frivolous, but I think it's got to be frivolity done well. Not lazy frivolity, Mark. I don't do lazy. Quality frivolity.
You're a
You try saying
taskmaster,
that,
aren't you? Yeah.
You try saying that. Quality frivolity. You say that
Well,
a few
after
times.
a few more sherries.
All the sherry. We're drowning in sherry.
Here we
Mark.
are, yeah.
Too much sherry.
More mince pies? Do you like a mince pie?
Oh, not another one.
Oh, okay.
I've had 56.
All right,
No
okay.
more, Mark. No more.
So obviously part of Christmas is looking back at the year that's gone. So in a reflective mood, what have you enjoyed from this year?
Just to stay on Doctor Who, I've liked the fact we've got Doctor Who in the winter time now. That makes sense to me. I like the fact that we have perhaps a mid-season Christmas episode rather than sort of an end of... Because when you tend to think big changes happen, they tend to be... Although, of course, this year we're having a new companion at Christmas, so that's slightly annoying. But at least we're not having a new Doctor at Christmas necessarily, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I like the fact we've got mid-season Christmas. Breaks the Doctor Who up into 2 seasons, so we can dwell on the fact we've had the 5 episodes of, and we can sort of dwell on them, enjoy them, savor them, rather than racing through an entire season and getting bloated, getting stuffed like Christmas, like Christmas Day, or saving up all the good food for the final part of the year when we should be having good food peppered throughout the entire year. We should be living like proper people. Yeah. So I like the fact that's happened. Obviously, it's really last year, but I love the missing episodes. The fact that we've had those 2 which are in the pipeline, and we've had hints that maybe next year we're going to have more animated stories. So next year is going to be a really good year for Doctor Who, I think, in terms of missing episodes, for animated episodes, for Colour Mind of Evil. Yeah. Fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that. So next year, come back to me next year. I'll be a lot more happier.
I think I'm right in saying there's another, I think it's an annual thing that they do at the BFI called something along the lines of Missing Presumed Lost.
Yeah. There's a lot of anticipation because of what happened last year.
Yeah.
And obviously it's very hard to... People are going to be listening to this. By the time, obviously...
Yeah, by the time you hear this, we might already have something...
We might have something, obviously tempered with the view of we've been down this path. As someone like me who's very into missing episodes and has heard... my ear's been to the ground, over the years for many a varied rumour. I'm not going to raise my hopes too high because you've got to keep it realistic. I mean, when there was a big sort of few years ago, there was a big thing about looking in Africa and making concerted efforts to look through those. A lot of people raised their hopes up, and I did to a point. But it was always the fact that we should be grateful for what we've got. Yeah. And this is where I'm not always harsh and evil. I'm glad about what we've got. We've got episodes represented by soundtracks. We've got telesnaps. We've got so many episodes surviving anyway that really we should be really grateful for what we do have. So I'm grateful for anything we do have, but I'm not raising my hopes. I'm keeping it real. I'm keeping it real, Mark.
You're down with the kids, aren't you?
No, I'm keeping it real. I'm staying down with these intelligent kids. The kids who keep it real, Mark.
Someone who is down with the kids, and who's also a very intelligent chap, is Suky Khakh, who's a regular listener to the podcast. Hi, Suky.
Hello.
He's sent us a bit of feedback, reference our sort of Christmas and looking back. So,
okay, is he going to be overly nostalgic to counteract as a counterpoint to me?
We're going to put him in here now.
Right, as kids, I was a bit stumped as to what we actually watch. I even went round asking a few of my work colleagues what they watch, and they were all going, "Oh, I can't remember." Right, but a bit of prompting, they got round to giving me some suggestions, which sort of jogged my own memory. Right, so like at Christmas it'd be like end of term, right? And you'd watch, yeah, you'd finish school, and you'd have BBC would put programs on in the morning, right? And they'd be like the programs like the Monkeys, the Flintstones, Why Don't You, right? And these are all like every end of term, right? During the holidays, these programs would always be on, so you'd be watching them at Christmas. But during the evening, you just couldn't think what we were watching, not as kids. But again, with a bit of prompting, right? You'd remember like so. The big one, of course, that you sort of remember for every year since it was put on was the Box of Delights, Patrick Troughton story, which starred Patrick Troughton, I should say, and that was very good. And then following that, there was the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe series. I'm sure that was on at Christmas time, or it used to end round about Christmas time. One of the lads at work used to remember watching Disney time because the only time you'd be able to see brand new Disney movies, even though there were clips, at Christmas. So he'd be watching that, and you'd be able to see the new Disney film, even though it was a small little clip. He also remembers watching. They'd have like the Bugs Bunny cartoons. He'd stay up and watch them. Not exactly Christmassy, but that's what he'd watch. Then you'd have the Christmas specials of the comedy shows or the drama shows that they'd have on. At the time, you'd have. You can't remember these early ones, but the later ones would, of course, like Only Fools and Horses Christmas specials and One Foot in the Grave, Birds of a Feather. They'd all be an extra hour long, and they'd all invariably be abroad. You know, Only Fools and Horses had one in Amsterdam, didn't they? And they had another one in Spain. I'm sure One Foot in the Grave went to Spain as well. The other thing another person remembered, and which is what I used to do as well, was the radio times and the TV times had come through. You'd go and buy the radio times and the TV times every year, right? And you'd mark the programs that you'd want to watch. And in them days, there'd only be like 3 or 4 channels that you could, and you'd always be guaranteed to have something good to watch each night, but you wouldn't be able to record it, right? I didn't start recording some of my stuff until I think 1984, 85, when I had my first video recorder. Begged me mum for it, and we managed to get one. And I've still got stuff in my little set of library from about 20 odd years ago. That's just lying there. But you'd go around marking on the radio times what you wanted to watch, and quite often or not, it'd always be a big movie, right? So every year, because in them days there wasn't now Sky, you'd be able to watch a brand new movie about 4 to 5 years after it had been released at the pictures. So like big event television in them days would be the movies. You'd have a James Bond movie which will always be on at Christmas, and that would get like mega millions of viewers. Same with like the Star Wars films. When they started getting out the Indiana Jones films, they'd all have really high ratings. Each blockbuster that had been released about 4 to 5 years previously would be released, and you'd get it and you'd go, oh, brilliant, right? And you'd be able to watch a film instead of having to wait loads. In these days you can get the films within about 6 months of being released at the pictures. In them days you'd have to wait 5 years. Other memories that some of the people were mentioning was the Blue Peter pantomime. I remember the Blue Peter pantomime. You'd have all the presenters, for some reason, all of a sudden they'd be playing other characters, and you'd have guests from other shows appear. I'm sure there was one with a couple of Daleks in there or Canine in there, and they'd be showing these sort of things. You'd be able to watch familiar characters in unfamiliar settings. The other thing, when we were kids, right, was the soaps. But the soaps, in the early days, it was only really Coronation Street and Emmerdale. And I don't think Emmerdale or Coronation Street would have really big storylines at Christmas. It's only when EastEnders came along they put their storylines at Christmas for really big stories. Now, what do I watch every year these days? It just depends on how busy I am, but I always make time for Doctor Who, even though I've not really enjoyed the last couple of Christmas specials. It doesn't help that I've been a bit slightly drunk and I've ended up going to sleep right halfway through an episode, and then I've had to re-watch it a bit later on. But you know, that's Christmas for you. Then there's the comedy specials that they put on. I mean, this year I'll be watching Miranda, The Royal Family, Mrs. Brown's Boys, which they're all great shows, and I'll end up watching all them. The dramas, I don't usually watch any of the dramas unless it's maybe a murder mystery, right? And I was looking forward to Jonathan Creek this year, right? But apparently it's not being filmed until February for probably Easter, so that's gone up to Swanee. The big programme that I'll be watching this year is probably Merlin, because it's going to be finishing this year. I've still got a few episodes to go, but I've got them all back to be able to watch, possibly on Christmas Day, right? And I'll be able to watch it all in one go, right? And I'm hoping that the final episode will be on will be on Saturday night. I'm sure it will be on Saturday night. Now on to the other section that Mark asked me to put a note about, which was what have we watched this year on TV and movies. There's been a lot of highlights for me on the TV side, because I'm not really a British TV viewer. I do like my American TV shows, and there's some really good new TV shows that have started this year. American Horror Story was great, absolutely scary in places and really good. Also, I know this might upset a few Sherlock fans, but Elementary's been really good as well. Right, different sort of take on the Sherlock character. Right, and Johnny Lee Miller is really excellent in his portrayal of Sherlock. Right, and it's interesting having a female Watson as well, Lucy Liu. On the sci-fi side of the TV shows, a couple of new shows to look out for. One was Continuum, a Canadian show, but it has been shown over here on Sci-Fi, I think it has. But that was really good. Bit of depressing future, but interesting time travel elements in there as well. Right, that was really good. I'm hoping it gets a second season. Grimm's been really good this year. Right, the first half of that season, the first half of the second season was really excellent. Falling Skies. Some people haven't really liked Falling Skies, the Steven Spielberg produced show, and they thought it was too depressing, too talky maybe. But this second season, it's been really excellent, where they brought more elements in, they brought a bit of mythology in. Now, without spoiling it, it should look really good for the next season. Haven, if you like your really spooky, some of your spooky stuff from the Stephen King novel, this is that's another show to look out for. Lost Girl, the vampire, the succubus, I should say. That was another good show. One that isn't got a sci-fi footing, but it's a professor with a sort of mental illness, but he can solve problems. Perception, that's really good. A Person of Interest, that was another show that started last year, and I'm still continuing to watch this year. With where all the you're being watched by a super all-powerful computer, right? And it decides to help certain people out. Primeval's got a new show starting in America, which I haven't yet watched, but it's had some good sort of reviews, mediocre reviews, I should say. Of course, the favourite, The Big Bang Theory. Right, you have to watch this, especially some of the stuff where it has Doctor Who references. There's a great show in the new season where there is quite a few Doctor Who references. The TARDIS is in the background. Teen Wolf was great this year. There's a lot of shows that are great. I'm using the word great a lot, but yes. Check out a new show called The Neighbours. It's about a a family that decides to move into this little suburb, which has been sort of cordoned off from the rest of the town. But they don't realise that this little suburb, is actually full of aliens that have been living there for many years, but haven't actually integrated themselves into the culture of American life, and it's actually quite funny. Right, not many people have reviewed it, but I found it quite funny. Whereas 13 was okay this year, it hasn't been brilliant, but it's been okay. It's just been mainly comedy shows and stuff like that, but sci-fi wise, there hasn't that been, to appeal to the nerdology crowd. Check out Arrow as well, which is a new take on the Green Arrow. Nothing like the Smallville character, but it's had really good reviews, and it's actually quite an excellent show. It has got John Barrowman appearing in it later on in the series. I've going to start watching. I've got them all backed up on my hard drive on the Sky. Right, for all the Misfits. I'm going to try and watch all of them in one go, see how the new characters are like. And the same with Merlin. I shall be watching that all in one go, hopefully just before the last episode finishes at Christmas. I'm hoping it should be really, really good. As I've also got young kids, I've also been checking out some of the CBBC programmes, and there's one called Wolfblood, which is a sort of mishmash of the werewolves, Twilight Saga like thing. That was an interesting take. I think it's actually got itself a second series as well. I've only watched the first couple of episodes of Wizards vs Aliens, the new Russell T Davies show, and again, the kids really enjoy it, but for some reason I'm not really enamoured by it. Another one that's on CBBC, right, which has got vampires in this time, is Young Dracula. If you remember watching the first few years of Young Dracula, which I have done, right, it was a comedy show. Now, even though it's got more elements, it's got elements of comedy in there. Right, there isn't that much comedy, but it's more of a drama. Right, between the power struggle between vampires and humans. That is another great show to check out. Now on to movies that I've watched this year. Right, there hasn't been that many. Right, I haven't had a chance to watch. I mean, with all the TV shows that I do watch, I don't watch that many movies. But The Avengers is good. Watch that. The Amazing Spider-Man, I actually fell asleep halfway through that, so I can't really comment on that one. I had to watch Skyfall for Mark's Nerdology podcast, because he did say his podcast was going to be very spoilery. And I thought, you never know, one of these days I will watch Skyfall, so I ended up going to watch Skyfall before I could listen to his podcast. And that was actually really, really good. Brave I've watched, the new Disney one. It was okay. More geared towards really younger kids, I'll say, or women as well, because it had a mother-daughter relationship. Madagascar 3, excellent, really, really good. I didn't get a chance to watch Men in Black 3 because I've heard the reviews on that, and I thought, oh no, I don't really want to watch it. Some of that isn't sci-fi or nerdology, but might appeal to some of these people that used to watch it in the past. 21 Jump Street, right, based on the TV show. That was really good. Jonah Hill, Channing Tatum. That was really, really funny. There hasn't been that much that I did watch. No, Expendables 2. Check that out. That is absolutely brilliant. Right, I'm sorry, but it might not appeal to some people, but it was really, really funny. And really, the action was great. Loads of violence. Also, some of them got a lot of negative reviews, but I ended up watching it anyway. It was John Carter. It was okay. Maybe if they'd have left the Mars bit on, as most people have said, it might have got a better review. But so people knew what they were getting themselves into when they were going to watch it. But that John Carter was actually quite a decent film. Right, he might get slated by some people, but I thought he was excellent. Again, he might not appeal to many people, but with the young kids, right, check out the Three Stooges. That was really funny. I was in India at the time, and you might pick up a copy here and there for somewhere, and we picked up a copy of the Three Stooges while we were in India, and we got a lot of kids. Not a lot of them speak English, but if you put a bit of slapstick on the telly, right, they can sit there howling their heads off. And this is what happened with the Three Stooges. A group of kids round a laptop put on the Three Stooges. They didn't know exactly what the storyline was, but all the slapstick elements, the comedy elements, they really, really loved. One film that I should have watched, but I didn't get a chance. I might go and do it. It's Cabin in the Woods. Actually, I might just go dig that out and start watching that in a second. I think that concludes my take on what I've watched over the year. I'd like to thank Mark for letting me do it, and also Zed, Aaron, Palm for some of their suggestions to help me jog my memory. Thank you very much. I'll see you soon. Bye.
And thank you very much, Suky, for that feedback. Nice to have a bit of audio feedback. And if you fancy sending something through to the show, you can contact us on nerdologyuk@gmail.com, or you can find us on Twitter at nerdologyuk, and we're also on Facebook as well, which is facebook.com/nerdologyuk.
Am I going to hear what Suky said?
No, because he hasn't recorded it yet.
Oh, I see.
That's why I said before.
Oh, right. We're going to keep this bit in because people at home might be wondering why I won't talk about what Suky's just said, but he hasn't recorded it yet, so I don't know what he said. So if he says something that's really praiseworthy about Christmas, I'll say, well, I may have disagreed with you on certain points, but I like your spirit, and that's great. And if you've agreed with me, if you're a bit of a Grinch like me, but a good Grinch, not a bad Grinch, we don't like those, then well done, that man. Well done. Well done. So yes, good old Suky.
He's a good chap.
And I'll look forward to listening to what he says when he's recorded it.
Yeah, you don't listen to these, do you?
No, because I will do. I don't like the sound of my own voice, believe it or not.
I find that very hard to believe.
That's the punchline.
Yeah. So, looking back at the past year, going slightly away from Doctor Who now.
Yeah.
Certainly something I enjoyed at the cinema, which kind of had mixed reviews, was Prometheus. Did you get a chance to see that?
I didn't. I was initially
fantastic.
not... I've actually only recently decided I might want to see this because I saw a DVD trailer and thought, well, actually, it looks quite good. But because the cinema culture now is always of regurgitations of the past, anything to do with the past, even if I like it, I'm always a bit sort of, oh, it's not that again, is it? Or they're going to do that, rehash that. It'll never be quite as good. I'm predisposed to hate these things. But this one looks a bit different. It looks a bit interesting.
Yeah, the kind of pre-publicity, possibly.
I just dropped one of the many gifts that Mark has given me this year has fallen onto the floor. So you're too generous for words.
Yeah, I am.
He really is.
Yeah.
Stop it with the gifts, Mark.
I'm sorry, Peter. The pre-publicity on that one probably didn't do it too many favours because they initially started saying, oh, well, this is the prequel to Alien and what have you. And then Ridley Scott was very much at pains to say, well, actually, no, it's not a prequel to Alien. It's set in the same universe. So if you went into the cinema expecting it to be Alien, you would have been very, very disappointed. But I think for the majority of people I've spoken to, they went in knowing kind of, obviously they avoided spoilers, whatever, but they knew it wasn't going to be an Alien movie per se. And I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I mean, Ridley Scott is a very artistic director. He's very into lighting and the cinematography side of things, so it's always going to look spectacular, and it does. I mean, the opening shot is stunning, and I think it plays out quite well. It's not a perfect movie, but I have seen a lot worse, and yeah, for me that was a highlight. And obviously, as we've touched on a few times on the podcast, Bond came back this year, and that was fantastic. A really great return to form. Anything else that you've seen that you've really liked?
I was going to ask you about this actually, because we live in an age now where obviously DVDs are quite cheap. They come out months after the event. I think when you get to a certain age as well, there's lots of things that come out which you had no interest in, or you're distrustful of to begin with. And a lot of the things that I've liked this year have been things from the past, so not contemporary. I mean, I've been watching from 1960. I've been recently watching The Adventures of Sir Francis Drake.
Oh wow!
Which is an ITC series, one of their earliest ones, black and white, shown on ITV originally. It was shown after sort of the Adventures of Robin Hood, which I think is a TV classic. I think it's one of the best things ever in my top 10 of good TV shows. The Adventures of Robin Hood is a fantastic show. They did a few other sort of historical figures after that, end of the 50s, early 60s. They did William Tell, they did Sir Lancelot, starring William Russell, which I have actually got them. I haven't got around to seeing those yet. But I thought I'd give Francis Drake a go. And it's one of those ones where loads of character actors are in it. So you've got Roger Delgado from Doctor Who as the main villain in most of the episodes. You've got a young Michael Crawford in it. You've got people you recognise from other shows in it. And it's a fantastic, very tightly written, different because it doesn't dwell on the emotion. It has the emotional to a point, but it's got a bit of everything. It's more balanced as a production. So they're only 25-minute episodes, but I love them. I lap that stuff up because I think it's done with real heart and it's quality programming. And so, I'm sure other people will sort of, when they talk about their review of the year, will mention stuff from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, of course. It's a natural thing
It's a natural thing. So a lot of this, it's weird. I'm trying to think about what's come out this year that I've enjoyed, and I'm having a hard time remembering because the past and present are all mixed up in my head, and I'm trying to think of what has come out this year that I've liked this year, and I genuinely can't begin to remember what I've seen because my mind is screwed. I think it's the curse of the cult TV man, isn't it? Where we watch things out of time.
That's true.
That's why I mentioned earlier on about the Christmas specials. When you watch them at different times of the year, you then don't want to rely on just the fact you're watching it on a couch with the rest of the family. I like something that is you can watch outside of that. So that's we live in a different not time warp is the wrong word, but we have odd calendars, we cult TV people, where we don't watch things when we're supposed to. And we watch things in batches, and we watch things from years ago that people have forgotten. A fantastic amount of stuff. So I'm watching that. That was great. I'm trying to think of other things I've watched, and my mind has got a complete blank.
Well, this year, one of the films we went to see, which is a more recent film from this year, was Argo.
Oh, I've never even heard of it. That's how I am with modern things, modern type people.
It's a really good film. I hate saying this because it always makes it sound like really naff pitch, but it's based on a true story, and it's all about when the Brits and the States instated a Shah, so they wanted to be able to sort of control the oil industry in Iran. Obviously, the Iranians weren't that keen about that, so they effectively chased him out of the country. He went back to the States, and Ayatollah Khomeini came into power. And obviously at that time, it was not really a good place to be if you were an American. And there are 6 people trapped in Iran, and they've got to try and get them out. And so the CIA come up with this plan. They use a cover story that they're going to make a science fiction movie in Iran.
I knew that had to be a link. I was thinking, this is a bit intellectual and about current affairs, and I'm thinking, where's the tripod going to walk into all of this?
They use that as their cover story. It's very well written. With these sorts of things, the only misgivings I do sometimes have is you tend to think, well, what have they kind of spiced up to make it a bit more... I was going to say, because before you mentioned the science fiction element, I was going to say, do you get an idea? Because obviously with a lot of these war stories, there's a big history, and then there's a lot to convey. Yeah.
You want to get through the politics, you want to get through the emotional impact, the lay of the land.
Yeah.
Did you get a sense of learning about a piece of history as well?
Yeah, I mean, they go to the lengths of giving you like a potted history of that part of the world before the actual story kicks off. I mean, it's relatively recent history. We're talking between 79 and 81 when it takes place. But yeah, a very good story, very tense thriller, a few comedy moments in there, and a pretty decent cast. Alan Arkin is in it, and he's brilliant. But yeah, there's some really good people.
Out of 10?
I would probably say 8.5.
That's pretty high.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. And Prometheus, how would you?
I'd probably give that an 8 out of 10.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
So
that's
both pretty decent films.
yeah. The recent thing I watched recently, in the last few days actually, people might be aware of this already because I'm a few years behind everybody else in certain areas. To go from good films to terrible films.
Okay.
There's a guy under the name of Red Letter Media who
Okay.
posts on YouTube, and he's infamously done a long critique of Phantom Menace.
Okay.
And you might think this is an obvious thing to do. We could just stand there and shout into a camera for hours on end. But this is actually, it's worth watching. It's 70 minutes in total.
Wow.
And you might think this is one critique too long. It's 70 minutes, but it's broken down into 10-minute chunks, which helps. And he goes through why the film, logically, he tries to get to grips with the thing about Phantom Menace is because it is so dull, I know it's bad, but I can't be bothered to even work out why. It's that sort of thing where you know that it is crap and that there's loads of things that aren't very good, like the acting and the characterisation, but he spells it out for you.
Yeah.
And I got to say, Phantom Menace's only purpose in life now should be as a media studies what not to do with film. It's like an example of what you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
So this 17-minute documentary is just basically this guy. It's really polished production. He talks. He does it as his angle is as a serial killer, but that's a very slight. That's a very slight gimmick, really, because a lot of what
So
he talks
you went
about,
onto YouTube and searched for
No,
Phantom
it
Menace
was
serial
recommended to
killer.
me by a friend.
Oh, okay.
And because we were talking about the Phantom Menace and how even today it still gets under the skin. And he said, "Oh, about this guy," and it's kind of a well-known thing because it's had lots of hits, and it encapsulates everything that's wrong with that film, and it even tells you about why the plot doesn't add up, why things that you wouldn't have been bothered thinking about because it is so bad, but which some poor guy has sat through with a pen and paper
And thought it through.
and a spider diagram and a flow chart to try and work out what exactly the film is about and why it doesn't work. One of the moments he is, just to underline how clever this film is, this little production is there are a few other fans, and he puts the question to them: how would you, without telling people who they are, their character names, and what they do, but trying to convey their characters, how would you describe, for example, Han Solo?
Yeah.
And you can use words like rogue. He's a good heart, but you know he's a bit greedy, and you can use terms like that. And then he asks the same questions. How would you describe? I can't even remember his name because he's so unmemorable. Liam Neeson's character, Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah.
How do you describe him? And the people sort of stare down the camera as if to say, "Good question." And you can't describe because they're so two-dimensional.
There's nothing to him.
And then Queen Amidala would throw everybody. It's like, how would you even begin to? It's like, you cannot describe these people.
Yeah.
And there's loads of examples like that. He tries to analyse the plot, and it's worth watching because I think it's one of those things that really, it's the basics of storytelling that really George Lucas gets wrong. And I think it's one of those things that really, if they release Phantom Menace again, if they have to, this thing should be on the second disc,
Right.
officially, as a companion to the original film, because it kind of then justifies the film's existence.
Yeah.
Because you can laugh at it and sort of really say why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond Jar Jar Binks. There's more to it than that.
Yeah.
There's plot elements that really do not make sense. And we're not talking of one or two that you can excuse, but we are talking the fundamentals of storytelling and why George Lucas gets it so horribly wrong, and why Star Wars could have been a lot worse had George Lucas had his way back in 77, 76.
Of course, this year was the year that it was announced that there will be another 3 Star Wars films.
Through the old friends Disney.
Yeah.
Lovely old big corporation Disney. I don't care, to be honest, because the Star Wars franchise has already been ruined. It doesn't matter. Let Disney have a go. They might as well let CITV have a go.
In fairness, their track record is not bad, considering they also own Marvel. And one of my highlights of the year was the Avengers movie.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've got their fingers in a lot of pies now, and
This is another one. I think people are a bit sort of the corporation taking over, which I do agree with. I think Disney are fundamentally a money-making organisation. I don't really have that love for Disney because, again, I'm not built on nostalgia. As you know, I'm a nostalgia-free robot drone. That's who I am, and from the future. And I've sent back to try and remedy the mistakes of the past. I hope this podcast works, by the way. This is my plan. It's a very low-key way of doing it, but I hope it's going to work.
Yeah, very low key.
Very low-key. But, very low-key. Sorry, Mark. Someone had to tell you. No, you're joking. But, yeah, with Disney, I mean, there was this quote that was a few months ago. There was this statement about, and it was this very management speak statement that Disney issued, where they said, we hope to, and it's impenetrable, but essentially it was just saying that Disney's primary objective, like the Terminator, I suppose, is to monetize existing brands, and to they use the word monetize, so it's very they are financially driven. They are there, as all companies are, to make money, but there was a sense that their artistic integrity isn't as rich as it might be, and there is that element to it. There's no question of that, and that's the beef I have. But then, if the product is good, I mean, this is the thing. People slag off McDonald's, but I quite like fast food. It does all right. It's okay. The practices, ethics, etc. You can argue, but as a product, I like beef burgers. I'm fine with hamburgers. I don't mind that. Other people don't. But anything in excess is bad for you, like Doctor Who, like podcasts, so yes.
So do you not think this is an opportunity for someone? I mean, I know Mr. Lucas will be still having some kind of control over
He's
what
got
happens.
artistic overall.
Yeah, he has. But it's the opportunity for a new director, a different writer. There are rumours that the writer for Empire Strikes Back is involved. So that's encouraging.
As I say, it can't get worse. I mean, what's happened in the past, those prequels really were, and The Phantom Menace in particular, was terrible. And it was one of the worst films of all time, because the money, I think expectation is obviously a problem that fans have.
Yeah.
Like, if you expect too much, like with Christmas specials, you risk being disappointed. But I do think, ultimately, that I think if it's a bad film, it's a bad film.
Do you think even if it was a near decent film, it would still not be looked on very well because of there was so much expectation before that film launched. The hype was unbelievable on that.
Yeah, there are some fans. It's a bit like missing episodes with Doctor Who. I mean, when Team of the Sidemen came back, there's all these fans who were saying how rubbish it was in reality, and they say, it's. But when I imagine these stories, I have a reality thing in my mind where I'm imagining them as black and white stories, studio based, bit tacky. I still love Team of the Sidemen. I've got no problem with it.
Yeah.
A lot of the flaws that people recognise, when people say, it wasn't as good as I thought it would be when I listened to the audio, and all they do is get frozen back in their tombs at the end, and isn't Toberman's character a bit racist and all this kind of thing? I'm thinking, but that was there in the audio.
Yeah.
A lot of the flaws are there, but you choose not to acknowledge them. Now, when I listen to audios, I always listen to them expecting there to be flaws.
Yeah.
So when we see Galaxy 4 next year, that episode, and the Underwater Menace, and any other goodies that might, fingers crossed, exist, I'm always going to be watching them for what they are, and not what my imagination's good, but I don't let it run away with itself. And expectation is very important. Tonight's show really is about expectation, as because it's the celebratory, the excitement of certain things, really, and about how you've got to monitor those expectations. And I think be realistic about it. And again, with missing episodes, with Christmas specials, with multi-Doctor stories. I don't expect them to do what I expect them to do, because I live in a real world that doctors age and they die. You can't recapture the past. Things were made years ago and might not be as good in modern day standards, but still good in their own right. And Christmas specials, I just wish that they were better done and not playing up to that expectation, which is what I think scuppers a lot of what we have at the moment with Christmas specials. I'm sorry. I want to love them, but I can't.
So, was there anything else left on your radar this year?
I've been watching as well, and for people who aren't in this country who might not be too aware of it, but I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Okay.
People, if we don't initiate it, it's people posited in a jungle that's suspiciously close to civilization, but we won't argue about that. Colin Baker, of course, is in it. I don't have a problem with
What was he in before?
I don't know. He Blake Seven.
That's right.
Yeah, he played
that,
Babe in the Butcher. So it was. I'm glad that people remember him for that, which is that's how powerful he was.
Yeah.
And he's in Doctor Who, of course, as in Arc of Infinity. So
yes,
that's another one you was into. There's a Doctor Who link there. But he's in it this year, and I don't have a problem with I'm a Celebrity. I mean, when we talk about nerdism, people can be nerdy about anything, and the people who watch I'm a Celebrity religiously, but they are nerds in their own right, and it has its own clique and its own terminology and its own way of doing things. I'm kind of fond of I'm a Celebrity because it's not like other reality TV shows which force you to watch it every day, every minute of every day. For me, it's a game show. It's like It's a Knockout.
Yeah.
It's just a modern day version of the old game shows. I'm not a sadist. I'm not watching people because I want to see them suffer. I'd like to see how they cope in those situations. I'm curious about how people work in a kind of unreality. You know, it's an interesting concept.
I don't mind the idea of, I've watched the first couple of episodes just because obviously he was involved, and my main concern really with it is I feel a bit sorry for the animals that are involved.
Yeah, there is that element certainly, and I do watch some things when and I do think, can they get away with it? But I don't think you should be calling the celebrities animals. To be fair, I think they're people too. Mark.
Not even the lady that's an MP.
I felt sorry. I mean, the thing is that people go in. You get the people who watch these shows. Obviously, it's an ITV show. It's playing up the sort of game show aspect. It's sensationalist, really. It's very tabloidy. It's trying to appease people who want, the vengeance on Varos, thrills and spills, really, which ironically Colin Baker is now part of. He's coming across very well, to be fair, Colin Baker, because he's himself. And it's wonderful seeing someone who, I say it's wonderful, it's weird seeing someone you've known for years. I've met him at a convention before, and
right.
You don't really get a chance to know someone, really. But to see someone, how they react with other people in a sort of situation where they're out of their comfort zone. Colin Baker, I think it's nice that Colin Baker is such a rough ride on Doctor Who, that to have some kind of affection in the public's hearts many years after the event. Yeah. I think it's nice that he's done this. I mean, when people say they're desperate, people who go into these shows are desperate to revive their careers. I don't think that's true necessarily, because for someone like Colin Baker, he's just doing it because his daughters wanted him to do it. Yeah. And if it's open, he's 69, which he's not there to revive his career. He's got enough. He does Big Finish audios and stuff. Yeah. He doesn't need to do it for that.
A bit of theatre work as well.
A bit of pantomime, theatre work, plays and stuff. And he doesn't need to sort of do this. So he's different to... not everybody who goes in there does it because they're washed up or whatever. And Colin Baker doesn't strike me as that. And he's in it just for the crack of it. He's great, and he does it for who he is. And you can see that. He's an honest bloke. And seeing someone who you've known for years but not known, it does make you wonder... God, I wish they'd done... If they want to celebrate Doctor Who in a multi-Doctor way, forget doing a TV special. This will tie things up at the end of the podcast quite nicely. Don't bother doing an anniversary special. Put all the surviving Doctors and a few companions in a jungle for a week. You don't have to kill them or anything, but just a week. To see how they bond with each other. Learn about them as real people, don't try and put them into a dramatic setting. Just celebrate Doctor Who in an inventive way. I'd like to see Peter Purvis... talking to William Russell over a log fire and just being natural, and it'd be weird and it would be wonderful. That's what we should be celebrating. Forget this special, Mark. Make it stop. It's not going to be true. We'll always be questioning it. We're not going to be totally convinced by it. Why try? Why not just have... we've got Time Crash for Davison. We don't need to do any more. That was perfect Time Crash. We don't need to do any more of that. That was fine. Let's just have them all in a... have a nice bonding session televised that we can all get to know these people. It'll mean nothing to the wider public, but for me and you, Mark, it'll be terrific. It'll be terrific. Let's do I'm a Doctor Who person, get me out of here for a week. It'll probably be a car park in Kent, so it won't be quite as glamorous. But I'd still watch it, and I would love that. That for me, that'd be more memorable and more sweet, and it would make me feel a lot more, that's nice. More so than any sort of horrible, where they're all trying to squeeze into their outfits, prancing around a set, trying to pretend that there's somebody they're not, Mark. Somebody they're not.
Yes. So. Well, if you want to pitch that to a TV company... Yes.
Real-time pictures. They'd be gagging for a format. That'll be it. They could do that. I'd watch it. I'd like to see... I think we should be celebrating Doctor Who in a different way, not trying to... don't let it impact on the show itself. And I think it'd be nice to celebrate Doctor Who in a different way.
Okay.
In a different way, Mark.
It's different. I'll give you that.
So I've been talking again, haven't I, really? I've talked quite a bit, haven't I? I didn't know half of what I was going to say before I said it. That's the beauty of broadcasting. It's like a production. It's like a proper production, like a radio production, but not. It's really quite liberating to talk whatever you like, and then realise that actually you're kind of exploring yourself. And I realised what a reasonable person I am, even about Christmas.
Even if you say so yourself.
Even if I say so myself.
You're very modest as well, I have to say that.
I appreciate other people have other views, by the way. I just like to make that quite clear. And I'm talking from my perspective, and why I'm talking from the fan's point of view who gets excited about lots of things. And I'm like I giggle like a chimp at so much to do with Doctor Who, really. But there are sometimes I think people try and force certain things on Doctor Who which don't need to exist. I'm happy with the show just being good. I don't want it to have old doctors or Santa Clauses or snowmen with fangs, because that's what you're supposed to have at any given moment. Let it be natural, Mark. Natural. That's my motto for this podcast. That's my message. Be natural. Make it real. Don't live in a fantasy land of nostalgia and stupidity. That's all I ask of you.
So, on that bombshell, I think we should wrap it up there.
I think so. Well, thank you for listening, strange, mysterious people out there who I'm equally mysterious, I suppose, to them, aren't I?
You
Really,
are.
I am.
You are. You're an enigma.
Wrapped in a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we go, I just want to say Happy Christmas to all our listeners, Happy Hanukkah, and all the other religious bits that are going on at this time of year.
But I'm gonna elaborate on that, Mark. I'm gonna say have a great December, right? But also have a great rest of the year. You know, I'm not going to say have a great Christmas and then I don't care what happens to you in January, because I do. I'd like to have a good rest of the year. You know, have nice hot meals in January and February and March that maybe have some bread sauce as well. You know, treat yourself to some single cream in Feb. Go on, do it. Do it, people. And invite your family round at any time of the year. You know, let them all sit round and you can talk about stuff and you can fart and then laugh at those farts. You know, you can do that as a family. Be nice to one another. It doesn't matter. Be good to your fellow man. Don't save it up till December. Don't waste it on one day of the year. You know, why not be free? Why not be lovely? Why not be nice? Just don't adhere to this strict, you must be nice in December. It's very tedious of you and it's so predictable. Just stop it, won't you?
Right, Peter's gone for a little bit of a lie down now because I think he's had a bit too much rich food and fizzy pop. So all that's left for me to say is a huge thank you to everyone who's participated this year. So that's J.R. Southall, Eric Stadnick, Lee Rawlings, Simon Brett, Matt Barber, Bill Linus, Eric Escamilla, and of course Peter Webber. And I'd also like to say a huge thank you to everyone who's listened. And we'll be back next year with some more podcasts.
About it and you've just got to do it. You're test recording, aren't you?
Maybe
You are.
Maybe I am.
No
maybe
Easter eggs
I'm
here.
not.
No Easter eggs here.
No.
Not today.
Don't have any of them there Easter eggs. It's Christmas anyway, you can't have Easter eggs.
Oh, I don't know what the equivalent of Christmas is. Dog eggs. There's a dog egg under the tree.
Christmas pud?
The other 50 pence in a Christmas cake, isn't it? That's like an Easter egg.
Yeah.
So yeah, the 50p piece. That's what this is.